Welcome to English Grammar 2, Unit 61. Be and get used to something. For example, I am used to plus verb plus ing. Here we speak about used to preceded by verb to be, am, is, are, or was, or were, or get, and followed by verb plus ing. It is different from used to alone. Used to followed by base form. If we use used to alone, then it is followed by the base form. Let's start with part A. Study this example situation. We have here Lisa is American, but she lives in Britain. When she first drove a car in Britain, she found it very difficult. Why? Because she had to drive on the left. In America, they drive on the right, but in Britain, they drive on the left. So when she came to America, she faced a problem. She found it difficult because she had to drive on the left, not on the right. Driving on the left was strange and difficult for her because why it was difficult for her to drive on the left? Because she wasn't used to driving on the left. She wasn't used to driving in the left. Here we use wasn't before used to, and we use we use verb plus ing after to. But here we have given pronoun. She wasn't used to it means she wasn't used to driving on the left. She wasn't used to driving on the left. But after a lot of practice, driving on the left became less strange, or in other words, driving in the left became familiar. She gradually started to feel okay. She gradually started to drive on the left, and she got used to driving on the left. Here we used got to express gradual change. She was not familiar to driving on the left, and now gradually she got used to driving on the left. There is a gradual change. Now it is no problem for Lisa. After some time, she became familiar to driving on the left, and it is okay for her. She faces no problem in driving in the left. So we say she is used to driving on the left. And here we use is before used to and verb plus ing after to. So if we look in the three cases here, we find that we have used verb to be, whether it is in the past as in wasn't, or whether to be in the present as in is, and got as well before used. In the three cases here, when we use used, we use before it either verb to be or get. When we use verb to be or get before used, then we use verb plus ing after to. And here it expresses that something became familiar or became less strange for the person. Now part B. In part B, we are going to discuss I am used to something means it is not new or strange for me, it is familiar for me. It is familiar for me. We have examples here. First example, Frank lives alone. Frank lives alone. He doesn't mind this because he has lived alone for 15 years. When you live alone for 15 years, then it is okay for you to live alone later on. It is not strange for him to live alone. So we say he is used to it, means he is used to living alone because he has already lived alone for 15 years. Now he became familiar to living alone, so he is used to living alone. We express it this way. We say he is used to living alone, means he is familiar to living alone. It is not strange for him to live alone. So we say he is used to living alone. We use here verb to be is before used to, and we use verb plus ing after to. Example number 2, I bought some new shoes. Okay, they felt a bit strange at first because I wasn't used to them. Whenever you buy a new shoes, you will feel naturally a bit strange because you are not used to them. So the person here says, I wasn't used to them. I wasn't used to wearing them. And here it was in the past. It was not familiar for me to wear them, means I wasn't used to wearing them. We use wasn't here before used to, and we follow it by them, or we can use the verb plus ing, wearing them. Third example, our new flat is on a very busy street. I expect we will get used to the noise. Here I expect something. I expect gradually change. I expect that the noise will be gradually familiar to us. So I expect we will get used to the noise. Here means we will get used to hearing the noise. We put verb plus ing after to, and we use get to indicate that there is a gradual change. But at the moment, it is very disturbing. The next example, Diane has a new job. She has to get up much earlier now than before, at 6:30. She finds this difficult because she isn't used to getting up so early. She used to get up late. Now we say that she isn't used to getting up so early. She isn't used to getting up so early. Here we say that she is not familiar to getting up so early. She is not familiar, or getting up is not familiar to her. So we say she isn't used to getting up so early. Here we use isn't before used to, and verb plus ing after it. Last example here in part B, Barbara's husband is often away from home. She doesn't mind this. She is used to him being away. And here we have it is familiar to her that he is away. So we say she is used to, and we use here is, verb to be before used to. And here we use pronoun him, then we add verb plus ing, means being away. Now comes part C. After be and get used to, you cannot use the infinitive to do or to drive. So in parts A and B, we have already discussed using verb plus ing after used to, and used to is preceded by verb to be. Am, is, are. We use am, is, are, was, were, or get or got before used to. Then we use verb plus ing. We don't use to plus base form. We use verb plus ing. If we have am, is, are, or get, or in other words verb to be before used to, then we use verb plus ing after to. For example, here she is used to driving on the left. Here we use is before used to, and we use verb plus ing driving on the left after to, after used to. We don't say that she is used to drive. We don't use base form because to here is not used as infinitive. It is used as a preposition followed by verb plus ing. When we start with verb to be or get, then used to, then we use verb plus ing. When we say I am used to something, to is a preposition here, not a part of the infinitive. So we say, for example, Frank is used to living alone. Here we use verb to be is before used to, then to is a preposition, then we add verb plus ing after to, it becomes living alone. We don't say Frank is used to live. We don't use base form after to because we have is before used to. We have verb to be before used to. Lisa, the other example, Lisa had to get used to driving on the left. Here we have get before used to, then to is a preposition, then we add verb plus ing driving on the left. We don't say Lisa had to get used to drive. We don't use base form, but we use verb plus ing because to here is a preposition. To is not infinitive. That's why we don't use base form after to. Now let's move to part D. In part D, we are going to discuss a comparison between be used to plus verb plus ing and used to plus base form. In other words, we have two forms. The first form is I am used to doing and I used to do. When we use verb to be before used to, then we add verb plus ing after to, because here the meaning is something different from I used to do, from using used to plus the base form. The first form, I am used to doing, means I am familiar to doing something. It is familiar for me to do something. Here it is not strange for me. I know how to do it. It is not difficult for me. But in the second form, I used to do means this is a habit I used to do in the past, a past habit or a past repeated action. I no more do now. I no more do now. I used to do in the past, but now I don't do it. This is the difference between the two forms. The first form where we use am, is, are, was, were, or verb to be, or get plus used to plus verb plus ing. Here we say that something is known for us or something is familiar to us. We know how to do it. We face no problem. It is not strange for us. That is the meaning. And in the second form, I used to do, when we use used to without auxiliary verb to be or get before it, then we use base form after it. And here we speak about a habit we used to do in the past and we don't do it now, or a repeated action we used to do it in the past but we don't do it now. Let's see the examples. I am used to doing something means it is not strange or new for me. This is the meaning of I am used to doing. I am used to plus verb plus ing. I am used to the weather in the country. Here we put a noun after to, as to is a preposition here. The weather in this country is familiar to me. I am example number two, I am used to driving on the left because I have lived in Britain a long time. It is not difficult for me to drive on the left. I know how to drive on the left. It is easy. So I say I am used to driving, and here we use am before used to, and used to is followed by verb plus ing, to say that it is not difficult for me or it is not strange for me. On the other hand, when we speak about used to plus the base form, we speak about something that was a habit or repeated action done by me in the past. I no more do it now. I used to do something. I did it regularly in the past means I did it regularly in the past but no longer do it. I don't do it now. You can use this only for the past, not for the present. It is used for the past form. It is not used for the present. But in that case, in the case of am is are used to plus verb plus ing, it is used for the past and it is used for the present. But in this case, in the case of used to plus the base form, it is used for the past only. We don't use it for the present. In case of the present, we use present simple only to express the action in the present. The structure is I used to do, not I am used to do. We use used to do, used to plus the base form, but we don't use auxiliary verb am is are. We don't use auxiliary verb am is are before it. Example number one, I used to drive to work every day, but these days I usually go by bike. It was my habit to drive to work every day in the past, but these days I go by bike. I don't drive to work these days. But in the past, I used to drive to work every day. Here we speak about a habit or a repeated action I used to do in the past, but today or these days I don't do it. I changed this habit. So we say I used to plus the base form. And the second example or the last example, we used to live in a small village, but now we live in London. London is a big city, and the habit or the past habit or repeated action, we used to live in a small village, and this habit or repeated action is finished now. Now we do something else. We live in London. We live in a big city. So used to plus base form is used to express a past repeated action that is no more done these days or now. That is all. Thank you.